Do you recall that unforgettable moment when you first laid eyes on the Eiffel Tower? That surge of awe that washed over you? It's akin to firing up a classic automobile. You can almost smell the fuel, hear the engine sputter, and then, in an instant, you're transported back. It's from this place, this profound feeling, that I want to share the saga of the Belle Époque with you. Come along, settle in, and let your memories guide you. The year is 1900. Paris is a city ablaze with innovation and artistry, a vibrant tapestry woven from electric lights and burgeoning industrial might. Amidst this exhilarating progress, two figures stand poised on the precipice of their destinies, their lives destined to intertwine with the very fabric of this transformative era. One is a young engineer, Jules Dubois, whose mind crackles with ambitious designs, envisioning machines that could conquer the skies and traverse continents with unprecedented speed. His workshop, a chaotic symphony of blueprints, metal shavings, and the persistent hum of nascent inventions, is his sanctuary. He dreams not just of efficiency, but of elegance, of creating marvels that would stir the soul as much as they would serve humanity. The other is Isabelle Moreau, an artist whose canvases capture the ephemeral beauty of Parisian life, from the bustling boulevards to the quiet intimacy of the salons. Her atelier, filled with the scent of turpentine and linseed oil, is a haven of color and light, a reflection of her keen eye for detail and her passionate spirit. She yearns to document this period of rapid change, to preserve its essence for posterity, and to infuse her work with the same forward-thinking dynamism that characterizes the age. Their paths are yet to cross, but the currents of destiny are already pulling them towards a shared horizon, a future shaped by ingenuity and artistic vision, all set against the glittering backdrop of a world on the cusp of a new century. The air in Paris thrums with anticipation, a palpable sense of what's to come, and within this vibrant atmosphere, their individual journeys are about to converge, setting the stage for a story that will echo through time. The city itself feels alive, a character in its own right, breathing in the new century with a mixture of excitement and trepidation, ready to embrace the wonders that lie ahead. Many people talk about historical events/period, as if it were just a bunch of dates and names in a book. But for me, it's not like that. I was there. I saw it. I felt it. And I'm not talking about seeing it on TV. I'm talking about being in the thick of it, smelling the gunpowder, metaphorically, of course, witnessing life change from one day to the next. You might wonder, why listen to this guy's/gal's story? Well, because my story is the story of many. It's the story of those who lived through historical events/period, up close, without filters, without makeup. And I'm here to tell you what it was like, no frills, straight to the point. Prepare yourself, because this journey is going to be intense. The whispers had been growing for months, a murmur that swelled into a roar on the cobblestone streets. It wasn't a sudden tempest, but a gathering storm, a slow accumulation of discontent and a yearning for something new. We felt it in the way people looked at each other, a shared understanding passing between strangers. The grand boulevards of Paris, usually a stage for leisurely promenades and sophisticated conversation, now buzzed with a different kind of energy. There was a hum in the air, a nervous excitement that clung to everything like the city's perpetual scent of damp stone and baking bread. It was the kind of feeling that precedes a seismic shift, a moment when the very foundations of what you thought was solid begin to tremble. I remember the early days, the tentative steps taken by those who dared to dream of a different future. They weren't shouting from the rooftops then, not yet. It was more of a determined march, a quiet resolve that permeated the cafes, the workshops, the clandestine meetings held in dimly lit rooms. The air itself seemed to thicken with possibilities, with the unspoken promise of a world reshaped. You could sense it in the rhythm of the city, in the hurried steps of messengers and the fervent discussions that spilled out onto the sidewalks. It was a time of constant observation, of absorbing every nuance, every subtle change in the collective mood. The scent of change was intoxicating, a potent brew that promised both liberation and peril. It wasn't just an intellectual pursuit for those involved, it was an visceral, emotional undertaking. The stakes were impossibly high, and the weight of that reality pressed down on everyone, whether they fully understood it or not. Even the mundane aspects of life took on a new significance. The routine of daily existence became a backdrop against which the grander, more transformative events were beginning to unfold. It was a delicate dance between the ordinary and the extraordinary, a prelude to the dramatic acts that were about to be performed. Before the seismic shifts began, my world was one of quiet routines and familiar rhythms. I was a craftsman, a builder of sorts, spending my days meticulously shaping wood and stone, my hands guided by generations of tradition. I lived in a small, bustling town nestled beside a wide, unhurried river, a place where the scent of sawdust mingled with the damp earth after a rain. My life was a predictable tapestry woven with early mornings, the clang of my hammer, the warmth of the forge, and quiet evenings spent sharing stories with my family by the hearth. The challenges were manageable, the joys simple and deeply felt. We knew our place, our purpose, and the arc of our days felt comfortably defined. Then, subtle tremors began to ripple through our community. Whispers of distant unrest, then the arrival of strangers with anxious eyes and hushed conversations. It started with disruptions in the flow of goods, unusual delays in deliveries that affected my ability to procure the finest timber. Then, the marketplace, once a vibrant hub of commerce and friendly banter, began to feel different. A palpable tension hung in the air, an unspoken awareness that the ground beneath our feet was subtly shifting. It was like noticing a hairline fracture in a beam you've relied on your entire life. At first, you dismiss it, but its presence gnaws at your sense of security. Initially, I tried to rationalize it all, to see it as a temporary inconvenience, a passing storm. Perhaps it was just a localized dispute, a fluctuation in trade routes. But the signs grew too pronounced to ignore. The usual carefree laughter of children playing in the square seemed muted, replaced by more somber conversations among their parents. The faces of my neighbors, usually etched with the familiar lines of hard work and contentment, now bore an anxious furrow. It became clear that this was no fleeting disturbance. The very fabric of our familiar existence was being strained, and the predictable tapestry of my life was beginning to unravel, thread by thread. The feeling of being caught off guard was profound. We, the artisans, the farmers, the merchants, were not privy to the grand machinations of distant powers. We lived by the seasons, by the needs of our community, by the work of our hands. This burgeoning change felt alien, an imposition from forces we couldn't comprehend. Yet, it was undeniably real, its tendrils reaching into our daily lives, altering the very air we breathed. It was a collective awakening, a sudden, shared realization that the comfortable normalcy we had taken for granted was fragile, and a new, uncertain chapter was about to be written, not by our design, but by forces beyond our immediate control. From that point forward, the trajectory of my life, like that of everyone around me, was irrevocably altered. The air crackled with a palpable tension, a mixture of anxious anticipation and a simmering undercurrent of defiance. People were a restless sea, their faces etched with worry, their conversations hushed and furtive, or erupting in passionate, sometimes angry, debates. A pervasive sense of unease had settled in, a constant hum beneath the surface of everyday life. I recall the scent of freshly baked bread from Mrs. Gable's bakery, a small, familiar comfort that seemed particularly potent on those days, a stark contrast to the unsettling news that filled every broadcast. The media was abuzz with pronouncements of imminent change, of sweeping reforms and strategic realignments, but beneath the pronouncements, a profound uncertainty lingered. It felt as though we were all standing on the precipice of something vast and unknown, a collective holding of breath. We lived in a bewildering blend of hope for a better future and the gnawing fear of what might be lost in the transition. And amidst the swirling chaos, I tried desperately to keep my footing, clinging tightly to the worn leather-bound journal my grandfather had given me, its pages filled with his wisdom and the comforting, familiar script. October 23rd, the day of the great unveiling, was the watershed moment. It was when the first city lights flickered on, not with the familiar hum of electricity, but with a soft, ethereal glow that seemed to emanate from within the very structures themselves. I remember exactly where I was and what I was doing when I heard the news, perched on the roof of my apartment building, sketching the skyline as I always did, trying to capture the last vestiges of twilight. The world below was hushed, an unusual stillness settling over everything. Then, a ripple of light spread across the horizon, impossibly bright and yet gentle, painting the buildings in shades of sapphire and emerald. I felt an electric jolt course through me, a mixture of awe and profound disorientation. It was not the harsh glare of progress I had imagined, but something far more organic, something alive. From that point on, things escalated rapidly. I found myself drawn into the unfolding events, no longer a passive observer. My days became a blur of hurried walks through streets that now hummed with a new energy, the air thick with a strange, sweet scent I couldn't quite place. I saw entire parks transform overnight, the dormant trees bursting with luminous foliage, their branches adorned with delicate, glowing blossoms that swayed without a breeze. Children, their faces lit by the ambient light, chased shimmering insects that flitted through the air like living jewels. The usual clamor of the city had been replaced by a symphony of soft chimes and resonant pulses, a language I instinctively began to understand. I conversed with Anya, the botanist I'd met at the community garden, her eyes wide with wonder as she examined a flower that pulsed with an inner light. She spoke of symbiotic relationships, of energies previously unknown, of a world waking up. Later, I spoke with old Mr. Henderson, the retired engineer who had always dismissed my grandfather's more esoteric theories. He was speechless, leaning on his cane, pointing a trembling finger at a street lamp that now resembled a giant, iridescent mushroom. His skepticism had dissolved, replaced by a quiet humility. And with each passing day, the reality grew more surreal. The world wasn't just changing, it was being reborn, and I was a witness to its breathtaking, luminous dawn. The sheer scale of the transformation was something no one could have predicted. It was as if the very fabric of existence had been rewoven, thread by luminous thread, right before our eyes. The initial shock, the disbelieving stares, the hushed whispers that passed from one corner to another, they all began to give way to a profound sense of awe, tinged with a healthy dose of apprehension. For me, personally, the immediate aftermath was a whirlwind of disorientation. The familiar rhythm of daily life was shattered, replaced by a constant hum of the unknown. The old ways of doing things, the established routines, felt suddenly quaint, like relics from a forgotten era. I found myself wrestling with a new understanding of reality, one that stretched the boundaries of what I thought was possible, and I had to actively reorient my entire perspective. The personal losses were palpable, a quiet ache that settled deep within. There were the practical inconveniences, of course, the sudden scarcity of certain everyday items, the disruptions to communication networks that had once been so reliable. But the deeper wounds were emotional, a sense of things irretrievably gone. The simple comfort of predictability, the certainty of what tomorrow would bring, had been the first casualties. I lost not just physical possessions that seemed less important now, but also a sense of unshakable security, a foundation I hadn't realized I was standing upon until it had crumbled. The laughter of my younger cousins, once so carefree, now often held a nervous edge, a reflection of the anxiety that permeated our gatherings. Yet, amidst the undeniable hardship, there were these strange, unexpected gains. It was like finding jewels scattered amongst the rubble. The most significant was the rediscovery of community. People who had lived next door to each other for years, barely exchanging a nod, suddenly found themselves reliant on one another for support and information. Shared meals became common, stories exchanged under the glow of the new, soft lights that illuminated our streets. There was a generosity of spirit, a willingness to help that was profoundly moving. I saw individuals, previously withdrawn, emerge as pillars of strength, their quiet resilience inspiring everyone. My own capacity for empathy, for understanding the struggles of others, seemed to expand exponentially. The old certainties, the established social order, fractured under the pressure of these unprecedented events. Families, once seemingly solid, found their bonds strained as individuals grappled with the changes in their own ways. Arguments flared over differing interpretations of what was happening, over how best to navigate this new landscape. Friendships that had weathered many storms were suddenly tested in ways no one had anticipated. The ease and familiarity of established relationships were challenged by the raw fear and uncertainty that had taken root. Hope, that most precious commodity, flickered precariously, often giving way to a pervasive sense of dread. The future, once a canvas of endless possibilities, now seemed shrouded in a thick, unsettling fog. But it was precisely in this crucible of fear and doubt that the true metal of humanity began to shine. I witnessed acts of extraordinary kindness, of selflessness that defied logic. Neighbors venturing out into the unknown to check on those more vulnerable, sharing what little they had, offering comfort without expectation of reward. It was a testament to the innate human drive to connect, to support, to simply be there for one another when the world felt like it was spinning out of control. This newfound solidarity, this shared struggle, forged connections that felt deeper and more enduring than many I had known before. It was a stark reminder that even in the face of overwhelming change, the human spirit, when united, possesses an incredible power. The life we knew was gone, irrevocably altered, and the imperative was clear: we had to learn to live, and to thrive, in this new, luminous reality, finding our footing on ground that was still, in so many ways, shifting beneath our feet. Years later, looking back, I can understand so much better what happened. The Great Transition taught me the resilience of the human spirit. It showed me the depths of both our capacity for innovation and our stubborn adherence to the familiar, even when the familiar was no longer viable. It made me value the simple act of communal effort, something I had barely registered before, and the quiet strength found in shared purpose. And, above all, it transformed me into a more adaptable and compassionate person. The ache of what was lost still lingers, a gentle reminder of a bygone era, but the wisdom gleaned from its passing is a treasure that no one can ever take away. We learn to navigate the new currents of our existence with a grace born of necessity. The initial disorientation, the bewildering array of light and energy that had reshaped our world, slowly began to resolve into patterns we could understand. It wasn't a matter of simply adapting to a new environment, it was about recalibrating our very perception of reality. The world hadn't just changed, our way of interacting with it had to fundamentally evolve. This process, while arduous, fostered a deep sense of connection amongst us. We relied on each other, not just for survival, but for the very interpretation of our surroundings. The shared struggle forged bonds stronger than any I had ever known. The way we moved, the way we communicated, the way we even experienced time, all of it was subject to this profound metamorphosis. It was during this period that I witnessed acts of incredible selflessness and ingenuity. People, stripped of their former conveniences, unearthed reserves of creativity and cooperation they never knew they possessed. We learned to interpret the subtle shifts in the atmospheric luminescence, to anticipate the energy flows, and to harness them in ways that sustained our communities. This collective learning curve was steep, but the shared victories, however small, provided immense encouragement. What struck me most profoundly was how readily we embraced the unknown once the initial fear subsided. The human capacity for wonder, long suppressed by the mundane routines of the past, was reawakened. Children, born into this altered world, saw it with an unburdened curiosity, pointing out the marvels we adults often overlooked in our haste to impose order. Their fresh perspectives were a constant source of humility and inspiration, reminding us that the essence of life wasn't about recapturing the past, but about building a future, however different it might be. One of the things that most intrigues me about the Great Silence is the way in which everyday objects, those utterly commonplace things we once took for granted, were imbued with such profound significance. Consider the humble coffee mug, the worn leather armchair, the simple wooden table. These were not merely tools or furniture, they became anchors, tangible fragments of a world that had irrevocably shifted. Why did these artifacts, so easily discarded and replaced in the before times, suddenly hold such immense emotional weight? Was it because in their very ordinariness, they represented a stability, a continuity that was otherwise absent? Perhaps it was the inherent narrative held within them, the silent testament to countless mornings, conversations, and solitary moments that had transpired around them. The patina of use, once a sign of age and perhaps even obsolescence, became a mark of distinction, a whisper of history. This is a question that stays with me, a persistent hum beneath the surface of our new reality. I believe that the pursuit of understanding this profound connection to the past, not as a desire to return, but as a means to comprehend our present, is precisely what keeps us grounded. It's a recognition that while the landscape of our existence has been reshaped, the foundational elements of human experience, love, loss, memory, connection, remain. The echoes of former lives, carried within these objects, offer a sense of perspective, a gentle reminder that we are but a part of a much larger, ongoing story. These relics, silent witnesses to an era of unprecedented technological advancement and rapid change, now speak volumes in their stillness. They remind us that progress is not solely measured by the speed of innovation, but also by the depth of our understanding and the resilience of our spirit. The children, with their uninhibited delight in discovering these resurrected remnants, often pointed out the beauty we had long since ceased to notice. A child tracing the intricate stitching on a faded scarf, or the smooth, cool feel of a polished stone found in a forgotten pocket, saw not just an object, but a world of stories waiting to be unearthed. Their innocent inquiries, devoid of the cynicism that can cloud adult perception, forced us to re-examine our own relationship with the material world. They were the true inheritors of this wisdom, capable of seeing the wonder in the ordinary, the extraordinary in the mundane. Their unfettered curiosity became a compass, guiding us back to a simpler, more profound appreciation for the essence of existence. If I could go back in time and speak to my past self, I would say, embrace the detours, for they are the very roads that forge your character. But the truth is, we only truly learn from our own missteps and triumphs. And even though the tumultuous era of rapid technological upheaval and societal transformation was an undeniably painful experience, I wouldn't change a thing. Because it was through that crucible of challenges and uncertainty that I became who I am today. The initial fascination with raw power and the sheer potential of innovation had a way of overshadowing the subtle artistry involved. There was a rush to build, to push boundaries, often without a full understanding of the delicate balance required. This period was marked by an almost relentless drive for more speed, more efficiency, more capacity. It was a time of bold pronouncements and grand designs, where the next breakthrough was always just over the horizon. Yet, beneath the veneer of progress, a quiet disconnect was beginning to form. The intricate beauty of the underlying mechanisms, the ingenious solutions that had been meticulously crafted, were becoming less appreciated in the clamor for the next big thing. The focus shifted from the elegance of the design to the sheer output, from the whisper of finely tuned components working in harmony to the roar of unbridled performance. This intense period of development, while ultimately fruitful, came with its own set of significant growing pains. There were moments of doubt, of frustration, when the path forward seemed obscured by a fog of unforeseen complications. The very speed of innovation that was so exhilarating also meant that lessons learned one day could become obsolete the next, demanding constant adaptation and a willingness to discard previously cherished assumptions. It was a constant recalibration, a perpetual dance between ambition and reality. And during those times, especially when facing setbacks that felt insurmountable, the temptation to lament the choices made, to wish for a smoother, less arduous journey, was powerful. However, looking back now, with the clarity that time and experience provide, those periods of struggle and the lessons learned from them are inextricably woven into the fabric of my being. The resilience forged in overcoming obstacles, the wisdom gained from analyzing failures, the deeper understanding of what truly matters, these are not byproducts of a smooth ride, but rather the direct results of navigating the storms. Each challenge, each moment of difficulty, was a silent instructor, imparting lessons that no amount of theoretical study could ever replicate. It was in the grit and grind, in the persistent pursuit of solutions despite repeated failures, that a more profound appreciation for the craft and its enduring principles was cultivated. Today, when I see the worn leather of the driver's seat, I feel a deep nostalgia. It's as if the past is perpetually present, whispering in my ear. And I know that my story, our story, needs to be told and retold, so that we never forget what happened, and so that we can build a better future. The scent of old oil and polished chrome, a fragrance so familiar it's woven into the fabric of my memory, always brings me back to those formative years. Each imperfection in the paint, each faded stitch on the upholstery, is a testament to the journeys undertaken, the lessons learned, and the unwavering spirit that propelled us forward. These aren't just inert objects, they are vessels of experience, carrying the echoes of laughter, the tension of shared challenges, and the quiet satisfaction of hard-won victories. The patina on the metalwork isn't just age, it's the accumulation of countless hours spent understanding the intricate dance between mechanics and motion, the subtle nuances that separate mere functionality from true artistry. This understanding was forged not in a sterile environment, but in the crucible of hands-on problem-solving, where theory gave way to the tangible realities of gears, pistons, and the open road. It was in those moments of near defeat, when the engine sputtered and the path ahead seemed insurmountable, that the most valuable insights were gained. The perseverance required to coax life back into a faltering mechanism, the mental agility to diagnose and rectify unseen faults, these were the true teachers. They instilled a profound respect for the inherent complexities and the elegant simplicity that lies at the heart of enduring design. This appreciation extends beyond the mechanical, it touches upon the very essence of dedication and the transformative power of resilience. The lessons learned in those days are not confined to the workshop or the track. They have permeated every aspect of my life, shaping my approach to challenges and my understanding of what it truly means to persevere. The scars, both visible and invisible, are not marks of failure, but rather badges of honor, reminders of the strength found in overcoming adversity. This ongoing narrative, a tapestry woven with threads of determination and discovery, continues to unfold, each new chapter informed by the wisdom of those that came before. This profound period, and crucible forged in the fires of necessity and change, has undeniably sculpted me into someone I never anticipated becoming. It has instilled a fortitude, a deep-seated resilience, and a more profound understanding of humanity that I carry within me. It granted me a distinct vantage point on existence, allowing me to perceive the world through a lens sharpened by experience. If you were to press me on the single greatest lesson gleaned from this transformative journey, I would articulate it thus: true progress is not about avoiding hardship, but about discovering the unyielding spirit that emerges when we face it head-on. This enduring wisdom, a beacon in the sometimes stormy seas of life, is what I aspire to impart to you now. My hope is that by sharing this perspective, you too might navigate your own challenges with an enhanced sense of optimism and a renewed sense of bravery. The challenges, much like the intricate mechanics of a finely tuned machine, demanded a meticulous approach, a willingness to diagnose and repair rather than simply replace. Each setback presented an opportunity for learning, for understanding the underlying systems and the subtle nuances that govern functionality. It was in these moments of intricate problem-solving, of deciphering the complex interplay of forces, that a deeper appreciation for the beauty of persistent effort began to blossom. The satisfaction derived from overcoming an obstacle, from coaxing a reluctant system back into harmonious operation, became a powerful motivator, far outweighing the initial frustration. This journey has illuminated the interconnectedness of all things, much like how each component within a complex structure relies on the others to function effectively. It has shown me that growth, in its truest form, is an ongoing process of adaptation and refinement, a continuous dialogue between what is and what can be. The strength derived from weathering these experiences isn't a static quality, but a dynamic force, constantly being reinforced and reshaped by the next unfolding chapter. It's a testament to the inherent capacity within each of us to not only endure but to thrive, to emerge from trials not diminished, but remarkably, and perhaps surprisingly, enriched.